expired. Senator Perdue.
Thank you, Senator Lee. And thank you, Ms. Yates, for being here this morning. I really appreciate putting your family through this today, Comer, Kelly, and Quinn. You know, I don't know what it was like for Kelly and Quinn growing up in the house of a top prosecutor, but the fact that they've survived is, I would commend them on that. I've watched your,
They weren't the least bit intimidated, I can tell you that.
Sure. I'm sure. I've watched your career in Georgia, being from Georgia. I've watched you go after the human traffickers, the sex offenders, the drug cartels, and even the gangs, the Mexican gangs we've already talked about today, the MS-13, among others. But I also saw you go against white-collar criminals and even elected officials, even an ex-mayor in a public corruption case there in Georgia, and I commend you for that. In your comments this morning, you commented that you made the comments that your loyalties were the people of the U.S. and the U.S. Constitution, and that the Deputy Attorney General has to be first and last independent and nonpartisan. And I would second that. I would also put for the record my observation that's exactly what you did in your role in Georgia, and I hope you bring that to this role in the Justice Department here in Washington. I want to change gears, though. I want to talk about you mentioned earlier in your comments that you would be the COO, in effect, of the Justice Department. I think that's right as a Deputy Attorney General. It's a $27 billion budget. That would put you among the top probably 100 to 150 top commercial organizations in the country, if not the world. You've been there about 3 months. I think we started about the same time.
We did.
And you've been drinking from a fire hose, but I'd love for the record for you to give us your observations about what your priorities are now that you've been there for 3 months. You're still in your first 100 days. And what reforms and changes do you see that you would like to make as priorities now as the COO of our Justice Department?
Well, thank you, Senator, for the question, and also thank you again for your kind introduction this morning. You're right, I've been here since mid-January, about the same time that you started, and I have been drinking from a fire hose. But during this time, I've tried to bring the same management skills that I had as U.S. Attorney in Atlanta to the Department of Justice. It's the same thing, but on a much larger scale, obviously. One of the things that I've tried to do there is to make sure that we are setting goals. I'm a big believer that you need to have strategic objectives. And that's right down to each and every component and each and every employee of the Department of Justice having a strategy and goals that they're setting. And so that's something that we're working on now. What are the things that we're going to proactively push forward in the department? So as a manager, I'm trying to gather the information there and to be able to set some of those goals going forward for the next 2 years, or what's not quite 2 years that's left now. I think I mentioned a little bit earlier that one of the, I think, a critically important thing that we do at the Department of Justice is to continually reassess what our greatest law enforcement challenges are and to ensure that we are devoting our resources to those issues and those challenges rather than just continuing to do the same old thing that we've been doing before. And so I'm asking our law enforcement agencies as well as our 38 components to go through and to do a current assessment as to where we are and what our challenges are, and so that we can better focus our resources there going forward. I know that being a chief operating officer and a business person is something that you have experience at, and so I would welcome any advice from you as to things that, of ways that we can best manage the Department of Justice.
Spend less money. Let me follow up on, you served as a vice chair of Attorney General's Advisory Committee, I think, in your role in Georgia for several years, if I remember correctly. You were involved in their Smart on Crime initiative, if I'm correct. Can you discuss why you thought Smart on Crime was necessary and what your role in the design and implementation of that was and why it's pertinent today?
Thank you, Senator. And actually, as a business person, I think it's something that you could relate to, because Smart on Crime was really about ensuring that we were using our limited federal resources, our prosecutive resources, and our resources of federal prison bed space in a way that would keep our country as safe as possible. Smart on Crime was designed to identify those defendants who are causing or wreaking the greatest havoc in our communities, and to ensure that our lengthy prison sentences are reserved for those defendants so that we can free up the other resources that we so greatly need in the area of prosecutors and in the area of investigators, and in being able to provide resources to our state and local law enforcement officers. You know, having the cop on the street is one of the most important things that we can do for public safety.
Well, let me change gears once again. you testified earlier, I think in 2011, the Sentencing Commission on the issue of supervised release for illegal immigrants who are in the federal criminal justice system. I think your testimony, you explained the Justice Department's position that these individuals should continue to be eligible for supervised release after sentencing. That was a position contrary to the Commission's recommendation. Can you talk a little bit about your position and the one ultimately taken by the Commission?
And I believe the Commission ultimately did go the other way on that. But I think at the time, the Department believed that it was really important that we maintain supervision in the event that we have a defendant, for example, reenter and reenter illegally, that we would be able to use the tools that we need to be able to bring them immediately back into the court system at that point.
And one last question with a minute left, and I know this is a long standing question, but you know, in your role as deputy, you support the Attorney General, obviously, and your ultimate boss is the President of the United States. And when you disagree with the Attorney General, who's your boss, and you disagree with the President, and you have to command respect for the people inside the Department of Justice that execute on a daily basis to make us safer. And you said safety and not statistics was your #1 goal. Help me understand how you'll balance those three issues relative to the ultimate objective you have of making us safer as a country.
Well, Senator, throughout my career, I have made it a practice to speak my mind. I've done that during the time that I was a line assistant. I've done that during
Can
the
we
time...
ask your husband that?
And he might like me to speak my mind a little less, to be honest with you. But I've made it a practice to speak my mind, and that's something that I certainly would continue to do if I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed in this position. You're right. If I'm confirmed, I'm the #2, not the #1 person. I would not be the chief policymaker, but rather essentially the chief operating officer. But I still expect that my view would be solicited, and even if it's not solicited, I might give it.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.